It should never be a yes sir, no sir, free bags full conversation, right? You having a mentality around the customer always being right, you'll never get any respect. You'll never be respected as somebody is their equal who can add value and is, as we would call in the trade, a trusted advisor, right?
Hey everyone, my name is Hamza and I am your host. Welcome to the first ever episode of the Modern Man podcast. I hope you enjoy it. Today, we're diving into the world of sales and career transitions with a very special guest, Mr. Christian Faulkner. Christian is an experienced account director with a demonstrated history of success in the telecommunications and IT industries. But beyond his impressive professional achievements, he is also a dedicated family man and a genuinely kind and supportive individual. So I first connected with Christian on LinkedIn when I was contemplating a career change, and his insights and encouragement were invaluable. Now I'm thrilled to have him join us on the podcast. So pull up a chair, grab a drink, and welcome Christian to the conversation. Hi, Christian. Welcome to the Modern Man podcast. How are you?
Hi, Hamza. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, please, my pleasure. Ready. Thank you for doing it. Yes, I have mine, but it's just water.
Oh, okay. Mine's whiskey.
That's always helpful.
Yeah, it's settled the nerves a little bit, but I'm happy to be on. I'm very happy you asked us to join.
Please, my pleasure. Thank you so much. So, Christian, tell me your story.
So, sales was a very far thought in my, when you're a kid, you think what you want to be when you're older. Nobody ever really thinks about sales, and it wasn't something I ever thought about doing either. I studied architectural technology at university, so I was more in the construction and architectural industry. Qualified, I graduated from uni, worked in various jobs. The typical scenario of somebody doesn't quite fit in to what they're doing. They're just doing it to do it.
Which is a lot of us, to be honest.
It is, yeah. And I think there's a load of pressures, not to get too deep into it quite so soon, but there's a lot of pressures for people, men and women to get familiar with what they want to do in life. And it's not necessarily an easy task. Some people are guided by parents that have the experience, They make their own mind up on things that they love to do, or they don't know what to do and they just fall into something. But, that was definitely me with sales. I studied, I worked for 2.5 years in the architectural industry. The people weren't really the people that I would click with naturally. It wasn't the right place for me. Let's just say that. And I had a guy who I worked for. It was a structural glass architectural firm, so quite niche. And he asked me to sell the business as well as do my job, which was to be a designer. So design these lovely extensions on these multi-million-pound houses. And you go and visit these houses, you go talk to people, and you'd ask for referrals and so on and so forth. So I just really enjoyed meeting people, getting to know who they were. A lot of successful people that I met that were in these lovely houses were in some form of sales, be it in finance, be it in tech, be it in pharmaceutical, whatever. And in the end,
would you say that's kind of what encouraged you to go directly into sales?
Well, it was actually the proverbial kick up the bum from the director who I was working for, because he would say to me that we're getting a lot of referrals in and they're saying your name. So, that's a good thing. You're doing a good job promoting us. And I said, to be honest with you, I actually enjoy that more than what I'm doing as my job. Is there an opportunity for me to just go out and find you business? And he said, I just can't right now. I need the designer, basically. I need somebody who can do the projects that we need to fulfill. But then he encouraged me to go and find out what I wanted to do. He said that, I think you'd be really good in sales. You're really personable. You click with people, you gather information and you listen. It was very much jumping in at the deep end for me. I was terrified. Absolutely terrified. I'd go to countless interviews, countless recruitment days where you'd sit with, sometimes 80 to 90 people in one room, and they only take the top 10%.
Yeah.
And then those top 10% still have to interview for the companies and the clients that they bring to those days. But it's a long day. You go through a lot of kind of psychoanalysis and you go through these tasks that they, see whether you're a team player or if you're a lone wolf or
the
if you're
tasks, the presentations,
Exactly.
One of the earliest memories in terms of my work history is attending assessment centers for jobs that I had wanted to go into, and they were interesting. That's probably the best way to... Yeah, it is quite scary. Not only are you meeting potential employers, but you're also meeting potential colleagues as well. And you kind of have to show that. Yeah, exactly. You need to show you're a leader without being too bullyish, but you're also a team player, but you can, take charge if needed. So there's a lot going through one's mind in those scenarios.
Couldn't agree more. And that kind of put me into, I suppose, the path of selling and path of sales.
Can you tell me more about like what was going through your mind when, although it did sound supportive with him saying, you'll be really good at this, but I don't need that right now. I need you to stay where you are. What was that like for you hearing that, and how did you take that on?
I took it on as a positive because it was actual acknowledgement from somebody that he knew that I was good at something. And sometimes that's all you need. You just need a little push. And that, if we wouldn't have sat down for that beer, and him going through my performance, and we do this regularly, we do it every couple of months or something. So, there's a lovely little pub in Angel that was not far from the office, and he'd be like, oh, let's just go catch up on your projects. How you doing? Like, really, really good manager. A really good boss. Sorry, he wasn't a manager. He was the boss, the MD of the company. But he listened. He was empathetic. He was all of the things that you would want from someone who's your superior, right? And essentially, he kind of flagged it. He said, I can kind of see a little bit of a dip in the spring in your step, and you're usually quite, I can't shut you up and this sort of thing. It's very much like a very observant individual. He's that hawk at the top of the tree that can kind of see everybody and see everything. So that was all it needed, and that I would give him credit for that one individual act, but everything else has been earned. Everything else has been my own doing, and that's what's got me through to where I am now.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Right.
So you have a wealth of experience in sales and account management. Can you share some insight into? I mean, you have to give props where props are due, right? Can you share some insight into building strong client relationships and fostering successful partnerships?
Yeah. It goes back to the point I said earlier about listening. You want to be the person talking least. And I also think that, fostering relationships to a lot of people is something that they think can be done really quickly. And sometimes it can. Sometimes you can just click with somebody and you either have something in common, you either have, you're from the same area. I mean, I had a client who, in my old job, in my previous job that I'm in now, he only lived a stone's throw away from my parents.
No way.
He was one of two decision makers in one large bank that I used to look after. Wow. And we ended up going for a couple of beers. I'd see him at the weekend. Now I knew who he was. So you just never know. But I think the main thing when it comes to building strong relationships and fostering relationships is just listening and understanding and absorbing. You have to be a sponge. You have to understand, not necessarily all the time what the challenge is. What's the problem? What can I fix? What's this? Also taking on board how the business is doing, how it works, how the different teams work, how does the structure look, who is your boss, what's the pain chain, who does what you do impact?
Yes,
that makes sense. So if whatever you do, who is that going to impact? If you was to position something to somebody, how is it going to impact them? And it always needs to be an underlying value to that. So in my opinion, the only way that you will ever foster good relationships and maintain healthy partnerships and relationships is literally down to the two things on the side of your head.
I'm glad you brought it up as like one of the main points. It's very important and it's also very underrated. And for me, it's in relationships, period, be it romantic relationships or professional relationships. You should be able to listen a lot more.
It makes a load of difference on the way that you tee up certain things like that. It goes with emails, it goes with calls, it goes with meeting people. The same rule applies, right? You have to understand, and I think a lot of the time, I see this a lot in some of the younger sellers. They're really kind of hungry. They need to hit their quotas, and calling, time on the phone, getting the sale, however you can get it. It's not a healthy way to sell. There's always a quality over quantity analogy that a lot of people use, and selling, I believe, is like that. Don't get me wrong, selling is a numbers game for sure. You have to put the work in, but it has to be quality. It can't just be quantity. And when you go into an opportunity and you've done all of that hard work, you've done all your prep, you've done all your backgrounds, all of the people that you need to speak to, and you finally get on the phone and you pitch the company, you pitch our product, and they go, I'm not interested. And you're like, oh God, I've just done all of that work. And they're just like, I'm not interested. It's because of the way you tee these opportunities up. It's just being able to set things up on a call and being able to set things up right on a call and on a meeting and be able to tee that up, setting up an agenda, not just going in blind and not understanding the reason you're there. You're wasting their time at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You are taking time out of their day, which they've agreed to sit down with you or agreed to sit on the phone with you and listen. So the last thing you can do is actually go in there with some prep and some, and to prep them with what we want to talk about, because then that can stop them from wasting their time if it's not valid, or just give them a good structure on what's going to happen.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Right?
So we have talked about this previously, but because we talked about it, I thought it'd be really good to, bring it to the podcast as well. So the saying, the customer is always right, is often heard, not only in the sales world, but just in any world, in any customer facing world in general. So what are your thoughts on this mentality and how can it impact collaboration and partnership?
So
in the nicest way you can.
Yeah, in my opinion, and this is going to sound really stupid, but the customer is only right when they're right.
It doesn't sound stupid. It sounds accurate to me.
Because not all the time, and it should never be a yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full conversation, right? You having a mentality around the customer always being right, you'll never get any respect. You'll never be respected as somebody is their equal who can add value and is, as we would call in the trade, a trusted advisor, right? Someone who they can rely on in their time of need when the storm is hitting the banks and that, you're the person they're going to call when something goes wrong and you're there with the boat going, jump in, I'll get you out of here. They're not going to do that. They're not going to rely on you. So yeah, the only time the customer, as you said, is always right is when they're right. If you've done something wrong, or if you've made a mistake, or the customer has obviously articulated something over to you that is definitely correct, of course, no, I agree. It's the customer. I agree with you wholeheartedly. And when they say something, you should be able to be confident in yourself to say, I actually disagree with you a little bit. Or actually I disagree with you a lot. What you're saying is, and it's not about being disrespectful. It's not about going, what on earth are you talking about? It's about, I hear what you're saying, but let's look at it this way. I personally think you're incorrect because of X, Y, and Z. And that comes all the way down to preparation, being in the moment. There's a saying, one of my old managers, he gave me this piece of advice, and it counts as the 6 Ps. And I say this to a load of people, right? And it comes into, it's sales down to a T. And I feel it's the way that we succeed in sales. Okay. And it's the 6 Ps, and it's proper preparation prevents poor performance.
Yeah, it is a saying. I mean, I have heard it.
And that resonates with a lot of people, right? And again, like I said, you can do all this preparation and then you can fall at the last hurdle. It happens, right? We have bad days. The person on the end of the phone's not having a great day, so they're going to dismiss you. But, if you're prepared when you meet people, and if you're prepared when you're in for a situation, and you know what's going on, you understand your world, right? I understand, I would say 80%, maybe 85 with some of the customers that I have that I'm closer to. Yeah. I understand 85% at least what's going on. You can ask me a question and I'll be able to tell you because it's in my best interest. So if you're going into a situation where it's not necessarily going to be confrontational, but it's going to be a difficult conversation to have, you need to be prepared. And you need to be prepared to either apologize and know that you're in the wrong and that the customer is right, or going in there knowing that you're going to stand your ground and whatever they say is going to be incorrect. And you have to have the brass, to do that. And I think that's hard for some people. You almost have to bend over backwards and break your back to be able to please a customer because that's what you think they want. They don't. They want somebody who can sit there and challenge you. Why are you doing that? I'm interested. Why are you doing it this way? What has made you want to do it that way? Oh, that's interesting. Not everybody in your peer group in the industry is doing it that way. Can you explain why you're doing it that way? Always be inquisitive. Let's be honest, we aren't friends with our clients. We all know we have a mutual agreement between customer and someone who's selling, or the seller and the customer, that this is strictly business, as most assassins would say. But it's strictly business, and they know that. They know that you are talking to them because you want to sell something or you want to position something, and it could potentially be something they buy, right? And they know that you can't do that without them. So it's a mutual benefit. Yeah, the customer can be right, but they can be wrong.
And I think also just hearing you say that, it made me think it really depends on what you're trying to achieve out of that partnership or relationship. If you want a partnership, you can't go in with that mindset of the customer is always right all the time, because you become almost a yes man. Because then what is your expertise? You know, what are you bringing to the conversation? What are you bringing to the solution? And how are you improving yourself? You're just doing what you're being told to do. And especially for us on like a service provider side, for example, we almost have two customers, I guess. You know, you've got your own company. Yeah, exactly. You've got your internal customer who is telling you you've got these targets to meet. Yes, I understand your external customer wants to achieve this, but it's not really within our scope. It's not going to be beneficial for us. And you kind of have to ride that. And if you're going in with the mindset of I'm always going to please the customer, you're just going to be in this internal battle that you can't really win.
You have to be just as clear to the customer as you have to be with your own business. Your own business needs to forecast. They have to forecast it up to the higher ups. You know, everything is scrutinized in our world, and you have to have, you know, levels of detail, and it has to be qualified. It has to be real solid information. And if you haven't got it, you got to be brutally honest. You can't lie in this world. You'll easily get caught out.
Definitely. Honesty is always the best policy.
Yeah. Some people would disagree if you were to say you're in sales, but they don't really know sales if they're saying that.
Sure. Yeah. Have you encountered situations where a client's expectations were unreasonable or detrimental to the partnership? And how did you navigate those situations, still maintaining a good working relationship?
Yeah. I haven't had any unreasonable clients. I've been quite lucky.
Which is good.
I think you kind of get what you get with me. I'm quite transparent and blunt. I'm here to do a job. My job is to grow you as a client. I want that to happen with us. I know that you deal with competition or our competitors, you know, but I just want to prove that we can do a better job and that you have confidence with us and our business and what I can do in my capabilities. Usually how I kind of set the tone when I meet people. I'm your account director. I'm in charge of the commercials and growing you as a client. I'm also here to lead the team that sits behind you as well, in regards to operations, customer success, business development, growth, so on and so forth. And I'm the direct link between you and our senior exec in regards to exec sponsorship and essentially supporting you in what we can. And that kind of sets a tone, right? It's very clear. It's very easy to understand in most instances. Yeah. But when it comes to unreasonable people, I think there's two ways you can approach this, right? You can look at it as a personal thing, or you can look at it as a situational thing. Okay. And what I mean by a situational thing is it's only happening right now. It won't happen again. So what's creating this situation? And you know, it could be personal. It could be something you've done wrong, or it could be something that you thought was enough but wasn't on their side, and they're reacting to what you've done, right? But then the situation could be they've had a crap day, or they've had a load of things just pile on top of them, and then you're the last call of the day and they're just looking to blow off steam. And you're unfortunately the proverbial punching bag. And I've had that before. You know, you've had some short clients and if they speak their mind, it's almost like they're on liquid courage a little bit. You know, how do you navigate that situation? You know, you just got to read the room. You know, if you feel that there's a situation at hand, call them on it. You know, is there anything wrong? Or, you know, you're being, I've said this before, you know, you seem quite short, or, you know, have we done something wrong? I feel like I'm being punished for something. And you can put a little kind of humorous spin on it and see how they react, but just call them on it. You know, is there do we have an issue, or is there something wrong? And then hopefully that would just open up a genuine conversation. You know, it hopefully would give more of a acknowledgement to a situation that would be like, well, actually, he's kind of picked up on that. He's not just carrying on and just, you know, sweeping it under the rug. And that ultimately will probably save a relationship in a, let's call it, unreasonable situation. Yeah.
And I think even in that, a couple of things. One of them is that the individual might not actually even know that they've said what they've said in the way they've said it. And then secondly, it helps them to know that you know as well. Because sometimes some people say something and they think they can get away with it or the way they've said it. But I feel like calling them out with kindness and respect, I think, like, just exactly the way you've said it, like, you know, I feel like you're being a bit short with us. Is there anything we've done? Is there anything I've done? You know, would you rather have this conversation another day? Would it be helpful? Something like that. I think it takes courage to get to the point where you say it, but I always think, what will happen if I don't say it? I feel like this individual might get used to speaking to me in this way, or this individual might get used to treating my team in this way. And I have a lot shorter temperament, I guess, for the way my team is treated than the way I'm treated. I can take a bit more, but when it comes to my team, I go straight in and I'm like, okay, hang on.
It's good. That's camaraderie at the end of the day. And as much as we're individual sellers, we're part of a team, and we succeed as a team, we fail as a team, and unless it's your own thing, it's your own business, then you only have you accountable. But
that's true.
You've got to be a team player in these situations, because you can't escape that. Like I said, being able to read the room and being able to acknowledge that something potentially is wrong, and having the courage to, well, actually, I think courage is a bit of a strong word. Just having the interest to understand what's the matter, because it's in your best interest. You want to know what's wrong because you want to know how to fix it.
Yeah, I was wondering what word you were going to come up with, but I think using interest instead of courage changes the whole scope already, because like you said, courage to me is almost like something people need to find. There are not a lot of people that, are as outgoing or as courageous. But if you say interest, that's different, because then you're just asking a question, what's going on? Is everything okay? Is there anything we can do to turn the situation around? Have we done something we're not supposed to? So interest is, very well said. Thank you.
Picture it this way, right?
Yeah.
You're not happy. Somebody calls you, or you got to take a call, and you know in your mind that I'm not happy, and you know what, this is just going to come out in this call, or this guy who was on the call is unfortunately going to get the short side of me, not the nice side of me. You speak to the person and you say what you say, and they go, "What's your problem?" or "Why are you acting like that?" It's quite confrontational, isn't it? And some people react like that. What's the problem? What's wrong with you? Sort of thing. But then if you kind of flip it and go, anything wrong? Is everything okay? Or is there something wrong? Or can you see the tone
and
difference?
Showing concern as well. Showing care and concern.
Yeah, in some way it is, but it's also kind of like a little bit of an innocent naivety to what you probably can already see is that they're pissed off. Saying the right things in the right time can be very hard to figure out. That's quite a natural thing, right? It's hard to teach somebody how to react to somebody's emotions, right? It's a really hard skill to do.
I love what you said. Innocent naivety.
Innocent naivety, yeah. And if you're really good at reading the room, it does make your life a hell of a lot easier.
It does.
Because if you've got the experience to be able to turn to different hats and to different personas because of the situation, you're inquisitive or you're empathetic to somebody who's really annoyed or unreasonable, let's just say, or you can go real verbal diarrhea with somebody who's really bubbly and really wants to talk, and you can feed off their energy. And that's, if you can flip between those, it can work in your favor sometimes, but 9 times out of 10 being yourself can work.
To be honest, like hearing you say all of that is great. I really could go down a whole rabbit hole.
Yeah, I know, we've got a bit more to go.
A whole rabbit hole about reading the room, but you know what? I'm just gonna move on.
Yeah, go on.
So you've successfully transitioned between roles and industries throughout your career. What advice would you give to someone contemplating a career change, especially in today's dynamic job market?
Yeah, I think it's, if we cast our mind back not too long ago, we were having exactly the same conversation, right? And I think what I said before is you don't need to think about it too much, right? You know how good you are. It's a matter of getting out of your own way sometimes to be able to articulate that to others, because we have, as salespeople, we have a lot of self-doubt. Like, are we doing all of the right things? Are we ticking all the right boxes? Are we doing the right procedures? Are we doing this and doing that, right? But in yourself how good you are. And if you realize that you're not good enough, what are you going to do to fix it? How are you going to get better? How are you going to educate yourself, or how are you going to sharpen your skills to get to the next step? You might have to take the real, harsh reality pill that you might not be good enough yet. And I've had that. I've interviewed and got to final stages for some real big companies that could have changed my life if I got a salary that they were offering. And I fell at the last hurdle because there was a person at the end of the line, or at the end of the room, or at the end of the table, that was just that much better than me. And he needed me to be at his level or better for me to progress into the company. And I just wasn't. It really needs to play into your strengths, but you also need to be able to acknowledge your weaknesses. And if you are willing to improve on those weaknesses, will make the difference between, whether that transition will be easy or hard. And then lastly, I think it's really down to you. If, say, for instance, you think that this transition is going to help you, you need to start sitting down and looking in the mirror going, why is it going to help me? Is it going to help me financially? Is it going to allow me to be, is it going to allow me to work freer, more flexibly? Am I going to be able to travel? Is my salary, is it going to help with my family? Your current situation that you're in as a person, is it going to help me? Or is it going to hinder me? Is it going to be a lot more work? Is it going to be staying late? Is the salary increase going to really be represented in the time that I spend away from my family? Have I got to move to a different country for a better opportunity? Or I'm really, the gap between me being where I am and where I need to be is so big. Can I really spend time investing in that? Those are the things that I think you should be thinking about when transitioning. And I, in my experience, I've been very lucky because I've had some good managers and they've taught me a lot of stuff that's been relevant. And I've gained the experience, the genuine experience, because a lot of times people fabricate and they get caught out. When somebody says, yeah, I can do this, I can do that, whatever. And then when you put them in the spotlight and they melt, it doesn't necessarily look good on you because you weren't a good judge and you didn't ask the right questions.
That's true.
You didn't qualify it. So, to answer your question, I think be yourself, understand your strengths and weaknesses, and really look at yourself in the mirror and say, is this what I want? Is it what I need? Or is it what I should be doing? And if you can answer those questions with confidence and you can bridge the gap with a little bit of reading, or, I don't know, asking your manager to expose you to more tricky situations or trickier customers. Can I have a trickier customer? I don't want the easy customers. I'm doing what I can with my customers at the moment. Have we got a customer on the books that's really difficult that I can kind of, stretch my mind and try and figure out how to fix it? And when you fix it, that's the biggest acknowledgement of that you have succeeded in your development.
So as someone who has transitioned a couple of industries and jobs, when we talk about transferable skills, have you found any to be particularly valuable in navigating these transitions? And how can individuals identify and leverage their own transferable skills?
Yeah, sometimes taking a little bit more time to understand from the place that you want to transition into, like what you did. Very much forward thinking on your feet and being proactive and not just sitting on your ass thinking this is what I want to do, but how am I going to get there? No, you just went out and done it. You found somebody, thankfully me, or very much appreciative that it was me, to talk to understand more because I've done it. And then I'm sure that you probably had, fruitful conversations with other people to broaden you broaden your horizon. I'll give you an example of not necessarily transferable skills, but the kind of can-do attitude that is required in some worlds, that some careers and some paths that people want to take. So I worked for the place that I worked at before. They had an intern program. A lot of the companies I work for had an intern program. They're very popular in sales. You can put them in different roles, and you can kind of give them a flavor of what the world of technology selling and technology companies is. I sat down with this kid. It was this young kid from Hackney. He had a really real, old man's head on his shoulders. He was very, very intelligent, very wise beyond his years. Even talking to him, when we were speaking, it was almost like you were talking to someone who was like an aspiring director level type of person. He had that real kind of carry, and that's very difficult and that's very rare to see in young kids.
Very rare. Yeah.
I asked him, I was like, we couldn't take him out for a beer, he was too young. So we went out for lunch, and I was like, why don't you join us, or why don't you come join us for lunch? And he was like, yeah, cool. And sat down with him, and I was like, I've got to admit, I have to commend you on the way you carry yourself. There's not very many 16-year-olds that you meet who know what they want and kind of talk the way you talk. I asked him, I was like, what kind of kicked that off? I'm interested. His dad was a academic. He was a lecturer or something like that in a college for business. So he understood business. And the mum was a mum of, I think he was like one of 4 kids. So big family. Mum was like the pinnacle, the hierarchical, disciplinarian, like hard ass mum that you just wouldn't want to get on the bad side. He got the drive and the hard love, the determination through both his parents, and his dad come up with the idea. It was like, well, what do you want? What do you want to do? He's like, I want to be like financially independent. I just want to have a nice life. I'm not greedy. I just want to be able to, know that, I've got money in the bank. I've got a nice car. I've got a nice house. The wife and the kids are looked after. And I'm like, this is coming from a 16-year-old, by the way. And I'm just like, okay. And he was like, well, what did he do? What was his advice? He went, so where do you find money? I was like, well, where do you find money? He's like, well, you find money in the wealthy areas in London or anywhere, right? So if you follow the money, you should be able to get some good advice. And this kid at 16 years old would knock on these multi-million-pound houses, buzz the door, and he'd have a little pitch ready. Hi, I'm 16 years old. I was wondering if you could spare 5 to 10 minutes to answer some questions about how to be successful. Simple. And some people would say, no, go away, I'm not interested. And then he would get a few people that would go and look out the window, a mile away from the gate. And then they go, yeah, sure, come in. And, he'd come in and they'd like offer him tea. And this is a strange kid, who's just come off the street and, he could have said anything. He was there. He was like, I want to know how you become successful. How did you get the Porsche? How did you get the multi-million-pound house? What do you do for work? And you see it a lot now on TikTok. There's a load of people in the States that
they do on the street.
They interview successful people. Is this your car? What do you do? Sort of thing, right? But this kid done it, ages ago.
Incredible.
And I was just like, that is insane. That is so proactive. That is so like forward thinking. That would have never, at the age of 16, I was, we were probably out, playing football in the park or whatever you did as a 16-year-old, right? Or whatever, I won't judge. But it's quite refreshing. And I think if we take it back to, transferable skills, you have to acknowledge what you are. You have to acknowledge what you're not. But you have to also, I think, have a little bit more about you in some instances, or you have to find that edge. You have to find that extra thing. A degree is a degree now, whereas before it used to be like, one of the pinnacles of education. Right now, it's just, it's just worth.
Everyone and their cousin has a degrry. Yeah.
It's like an iPhone. Everyone has they have a degree and they have an iPhone. It's all, if you're Android, you have Android, whatever. But, you have to always better yourself. You've got to go and do some charitable work. You have to do some, free paid work. You have to go and, show that you had, you're part of some team that reinvented the wheel sort of. It's just real, like, there has to be that extra edge. You'll find that the people were brutally honest with themselves and know what they have and they know what they haven't, and they are willing to put the work in and be able to proactively, and positively impact those not negative, but those things that need to change to get them to the next step. And have no qualms and no preconceived ideas on how that's going to look. They just do it. Yeah. That's where, those transferable skills and extra will help you when it comes to transitioning.
I appreciate that. And just to reiterate something you said about the individual that you were talking about, knocking on people's doors and talking to people, I feel like there's not much that is new under the sun, so everything and every path that someone wants to take, someone has taken that path before. So it's all about, trying to learn from their experience and learn from where they failed. And to be honest, that's why I reached out to people in the professional services industry, because I wanted to know, like, I don't know unless I talk to someone. Yes, I can find, videos on YouTube, but it's so different to have an actual conversation. And yes, you're going to get a lot of rejections. There are going to be a lot of people who don't have the time or who did see the message, intend on responding, and just never go around to do it. But you will find some people that are very impactful, like, yourself and our conversation. You will find so many interesting people and you get to learn from them. And even if you don't do exactly what they've done, you would know the mistakes that they've made and the challenges and how you can avoid them, being in that same situation as well. So
I agree. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, right? It's like when you buy something, right? We're not talking about like professionally or business wise. When you go to buy something, there's always a pros and cons when they review something, and there's always like and I know this kind of going off topic a little bit on transitional skills and stuff, but if you can just acknowledge the pros and the cons to something and then understand how you can make more pros than cons, it's the same thing, right? If you can understand the skills that you're going to need to transition into that role, but you don't have them, but you've got time to learn, you've got time to develop, acknowledging that will ultimately put you in a much better position than if you think you can transition to it now and then you just get loads of no's. And then what will happen then is that will take a dent in your ego. It will take a dent in your confidence. Exactly. That was the word I was looking for. Thank you. And you won't do it again. You'll just stay where you are because you think you're not good enough.
Well, you get so discouraged that you push back the time and you occupy your mind with so many other things. That time that you would have used to learn, the time that you would have used to talk to people, the time that you would have used to invest in yourself, you get that no. And let's just be honest, no one ever likes hearing no, so once you hear that, it's like, maybe I can't do it. But if you take more time and invest in yourself, you will hear a lot of people who are telling you different criterias. And like for me, for example, I don't think I've ever shared this story. So I moved to the UK when I was 17, and I started in Coventry. I did my foundation, did my undergraduate, then did a master's. And when I was applying for my master's, I applied to, I think, about 29 graduate schemes, and I got one. And for me, right, I knew that I was good. I knew that there was something about me, and I knew that I had put myself in so many different experiences. I was, class president, and I had worked part-time jobs, and I had invested in myself. So getting all those rejections, but still having so much on, because I had applied to all of them, and I was like, you know what, whatever happens, happens. And it's incredible that a lot of people, sometimes they feel like they are ready, they go for it, they get one no, and then they stop. And I'm like, no, even with those graduate scheme applications, I applied right after my undergraduate, didn't get any, went to do my master's, and then did the same process again. So it's not just about finding moments where, you feel you're ready for something, you go for it, you get a no, and then you stop. It's about finding those moments. Okay, what do I need to get there? Investing in yourself, and then going for it. And even if you get a no, still go for it. Just because you don't fit this particular industry or this particular profession or this particular company doesn't mean that you can't be successful somewhere else.
I agree. It's another skill that I think is required in our line of work, which is tenacity. You can't give up in this. You are constantly riddled with rejection and no's and pushbacks. You think you've got it, then you didn't, because you didn't qualify it out properly. You bank on the money that you're going to earn in commission, and then it ends up getting wasted or pushed to the next quarter because you didn't get the right information from the client, or you messed up an order. We're constantly riddled with negative things in sales. But if you can wash it off at the end of the day and then have another crack the next day, and have that thicker outer skin to that particular side of the business, you won't have a problem.
Hey there, it's Hamza. I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. It really does help the channel grow. For more info, check out our website at tmmpodcast.com. Now, back to the episode. So, as an account director, you're a leader in your field. What are some key leadership qualities or principles that you believe are essential for success in today's world?
There are quite a few things, but one key thing that I love about my job is the ability to be able to develop and help people. I'm a leader in that sense. Now, like I said, a senior role, it allows me to be able to teach, to mentor, to guide, to develop more, say, less seasoned salespeople. And I love that. I love that part of it. Yeah. And I think, the principles that come with being able to do that part of the job is patience, patience, patience. You have to just realize that the person that you're talking to doesn't have your experience. So you have to be patient. Somebody could just sit there and just go, pull yourself together, will you? It's just, get on with it. Just get on with it. What's wrong with you? Just sit there, read it, and just say it. What is wrong with you? That if you were to say that to somebody, that would just kill any chances of
it will crush them. Yeah.
A question. And that's that, I've had that where somebody would tell me something once, and I'd go back and I'd ask again, and the guy just told you. Yeah, obviously I'm coming back to you because I don't understand. And then they're like, you're giving me attitude. And I'm like, I'm trying to get your help. I won't be doing that again. And then you go off and figure it out on your own, and you make even more mistakes. Else. If that person would have gone, sorry, I probably told you like that a million miles an hour. You need to do this, make sure you speak to that person. And also don't forget to say that, right? Clear. Write it down, do whatever you need to do to keep it. And then if you don't do that, that's your fault. But I think the biggest, thing that I would say when it comes to mentoring somebody, it's about knowing where they are and where we need to get them. Right. Yeah. So they don't know how to sell that well, but they've got, good personality, good personal skills. They're very articulate. Right. Okay. I hate scripts, so I don't like writing scripts. But for the sake of teaching somebody, I will write a script, or I would say it like this, or why don't you try that? But ultimately, you need to let them know that they're going to fail. Yeah. They're going to have days where they've had really good calls. And then there are days where you're just literally going to want to throw yourself out the window because nobody is listening to you. And what that is, and not to quote Liam Neeson, I have a special set of skills, this, that, and the other. But what you can do is you can then you can drip feed those skills. And I think that's key as well. Don't drown them in your knowledge, but drip feed them bit by bit so that they can absorb it and they don't drown under the pressure. If you let them come to you and go, I tried doing this and I messed up. Why did you mess up? And then you walk through it and go, okay, well, all right, yeah, that was a bit of a mistake, but let's take some things out of that. You did this, you did that. Maybe you could have changed this. It's just the way that you approach. And I think the qualities are really straightforward. It's just, having, for me personally, if I can say that I can get to her to a level where she's self-sufficient, I think I've succeeded. If I can say, or somebody would say to somebody else, Christian done a really good job with whoever's, I'm mentoring, it will help me, it will help my image. But also it's a bit of self-satisfaction, right? I know that I can do that and help somebody. Yeah. And it's actually valuable. So yeah.
And I just wanted to add on to that as well. Something that I've learned is meeting people where they are. Everyone is different, right? So you will have some people who are quick learners. They want to take on a lot very quickly. And I will gladly give it to them when I feel like they've gotten to that point where they can take on more. And then there are just some people who need to take their time a little bit more with it. It doesn't make either of them better than the other. It just means that these are different ways they learn. Same with me. I was more of a visual learner at school. So the beginning of my educational career, I can gladly say now, because I'm doing well, that I wasn't the best student. And that's just
I was thick as a doorknob. Still, if that's the saying, I barely scraped out of school with GCSEs. I barely scraped out of uni with a degree. And I think that's what's great about sales as well, is that you don't need, all right, you can't go into sales, completely and utterly out of it mentally, right? It's draining. It's mentally draining enough as it is. And if you haven't got the mental capacity to deal with that, it can be quite overwhelming, right? So you have to have some level of intellect. You have to have, but that doesn't necessarily need to come from being, at school or at uni.
Yeah, that's
it's
true.
Just like I said, it's almost like the university of life thing that all the old people say when they didn't go to school and they just went out and done stuff, right? But it's true. Some of the best sellers, some of the best people who, do what they do in sales doesn't necessarily mean they came from education. It helps to some extent. If you go into the world of finance, there's always that, business and business management, finance, economics and stuff like that. And then you've got a selling side of you. That's always going to help. But who says that somebody who hasn't gone to uni can't pick up a book or have an interest in something and absorb it really? You only got to look at Suits. Went to uni, got kicked out, had a photographic memory, and he was one of the best lawyers in the series, right? And it wasn't because
one of the best TV shows as well.
Yeah, it's a really good show. And, that's in my mind, a good example. If you have an ability or if you have a good foundation, anybody can succeed in this job. The only thing that is measurable when it comes to how much you succeed is how much you do or you don't put into this job.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
Just how much you want it.
How do you balance the demands of your career with your family life, and what strategies do you use to maintain that balance?
So this is the hard part of our job, or I feel is the hard part of our job, because I come from a household where my wife, she's not from the corporate world. So, us salespeople, we network, we go for drinks with clients, we take clients out for dinner, we do what we need to do to win business, to build relationships, this, that, and the other. That doesn't really resonate with my family. They're not from that world. I'm kind of the only person that does it. With what I do, it is a lot of reassurance that I have to give. There's a lot of, obviously I have a young family. I've got two kids, four and one. So the biggest thing for me is not being able to spend time with my kids. I leave, most days I leave early. It's nice days like this where I work from home. I'm able to see the kids before they go to bed. Yeah. But most days I leave before they're up and I'm back maybe an hour before they go to bed. And that pressure goes on the other half. I've been with my wife. We've been married for 7 years, but I've been with her since I was 17. So we've been really long relationship, and it's, I think what works is that we communicate. She'll argue the fact that sometimes I'm poor at communicating, but but I try my best.
I think mine will do the exact same, to be fair.
And, both of our jobs provide a great income for the household. We're very lucky. We're normal people, but we're affected by all the same problems, and that's spending time with each other. And, you make up for it at the weekends. And, I make a big effort about, spending as much time with the kids before they go to bed. And, we have, me and the missus eat together every night. It's the little things, they don't need a big hoo-ha coming home with flowers every night because you haven't seen them and whatever. It's the little things. So I think balancing family, personal, professional life, it really comes down to what you have agreed with your other half and your wife or your partner or whoever you're spending your life with, and that they understand this is what is required sometimes, right? But what I will do as a compensation to that, I won't just go on a Thursday night. By the way, I'm meeting clients tomorrow and I'm going out for drinks on Friday night, on Thursday night.
Yeah.
So just being able to know what's going on, what you need to do, what you can commit to and what you can't commit to at work as well. If you haven't got a partner or a girlfriend or a wife and it's you, do what you want. You're your own boss at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You're doing what you want to do, exactly. And then when you've got a girlfriend, you're all probably doing different things and you both have your social lives and then you meet in the middle and that sort of thing. So it varies, but you make it work if you want to make it work.
And there's so much, I think, especially for people in relationships, there's so many practical things that you can do. Like you've said, knowing what you can pick up and what you can't pick up, what you can be involved in and what you can't. And just like we discussed, communication is huge. So sometimes sync up calendars if it helps. So my wife and I currently have our calendars joined together. It just makes life easier. Sorry, say that again.
I said that's exactly the same for mine and me and my wife. Joint calendars.
Although
I'm the idiot who forgets everything. It's not her. She's like an elephant. She remembers everything.
To be honest,
we're going where?
I feel like we can say this on this podcast. It seems like a man thing because I get the same complaints. Like I've told you this before. We're doing this now, and I'm like, oh, okay. So where is it again? I literally bought tickets to a play yesterday in a different city.
The cherry on the top is like I put it in the calendar, and you're like, oh yeah, you did.
Oh yeah, you did.
So you haven't got a leg to stand on, and you're literally sitting there going, all right, well, looks like I'm not going golf with the boys this weekend. I'm going to Peppa Pig World or something like that.
But I'm lucky and grateful that I have gotten into the habit of at least looking at my calendar a week in advance or before I put any other plan. So I haven't double booked in a while. But yeah, I'm not. It's not unfounded for it to happen. Okay, so as we kind of like bring the podcast to a close and we focus on the modern man for a second, in your experience, how has the definition of masculinity evolved in the workplace, and what are some of the positive changes that you've observed?
Yeah, so I feel like what has helped masculinity within the workplace and seen positive change is the people that want it to change, that feel that it's not necessary. So the people that come in that lead the company and put a stop to, the crap that we've all heard of, right? And not to take away anything that a man will do in an office, but there's been certain situations where I've seen a woman do it 10 times better, and I think what comes from that is the different sets of skills that, we were just joking about earlier about how our wives are so much more organized, they're so much more militant and more planned, and you can see that straight away when you talk to people that, some of the higher performing women who I talk to in my company or in the previous companies as well, and you're like, Christ, I wish I was like that. But then they would go, I wish I was so confident like you. I wish that, and it's almost like blowing smoke up each other's backsides, of compliments, because I wish I had your skills. I wish I had your skills. We just smashed each other together. We'd be the perfect salesperson, and you're like, well, I trade off on this, you trade off on that, but we work with it, right? But I think to answer your question, masculinity in the workplace, I think there's two ways of looking at it, the right way and the wrong way. Being a masculine and being laddie and being part of a group and being like banterous and collaborative and, respectful as well, I think is key. Because, you don't need to be flaunting around all of the stuff that lads talk about when the women are in the room and stuff. So, if you can keep it respectful and I suppose avoid people that have that more top, or call them up on it and be like, that's not, you shouldn't be acting like that. Have some respect. That for me is what masculinity looks like. If you want to you want to take away the stereotypical stuff, you know, like, you know, alpha male, dominant, this sort and that. It's not like that anymore. You know, there's a load of people that are in any business that, all right, some people will argue, like, name me, you know, a female CEO and all that sort of stuff that is like gender equality and stuff. But there are tons of women who I'm terrified of in my company that I would, you know, because they hold high level, C-level positions, you know, upper management, VP, and you just be just as frightened to talk to them as you would be the male VPs because they hold that level of status. They earned it and they've done it. And they probably had to work twice as hard to do it. So masculinity in the office is having respect, being caring for everybody around, being protective, and always being willing to help is what masculinity looks like to me. But it goes both ways.
I appreciate that. So what advice would you give to young men who are just starting out their careers and navigating the complexities of the modern workplace?
Yeah, best advice I would give to a young man or young person or whoever is coming into a career or wanting to, you know, make a career, start a career, is really just make sure that you confer, don't make the decisions on your own, talk to the people that care about you the most, and then just go out and make mistakes. Do the things that make you uncomfortable, and learn. Best way you can do anything is just by learning.
And how can men support and uplift each other, especially in the workplace?
I think it goes back to the whole camaraderie, group, team thing, right? It's, you know, it's easy to kind of brush it off as a bloke, right? You know, don't really want to talk about it, do whatever. I think if you're going to spend, I can't remember the statistic, but I think you spend near along 70 to 80% of your life with the people that you work with and not your family and friends and loved ones and stuff. So spend a hell of a lot of time with people that aren't necessarily blood or aren't family, but they're your work colleagues. So I'm in this mindset that you should really, you know, you should be getting invested in the people that you work with. You should know what's not necessarily going on in their life. You don't want to come across as nosy or gossipy or anything like that. I'm condoning that in some way, but you know, we in our line of work, you'd like to think that you're a good judge of character and you can pick up on things. And like we were talking about earlier, being able to read the room and being able to this. If you feel something's wrong, you know, just have the balls to stand up and say, like, is everything all right? You okay? Or, you know, what's going on? Do you want to go for a beer, or do you want this? Do you want that? And I can't see that as being a very difficult task to do. You know, if we go back to the statistics, you know, obviously men and mental health and so on and so forth is quite rife, and you know, you've either been touched by that or you haven't, and it happens with everyone. But what is the overarching thing that I think makes a difference is really if you can notice that and do something about it and not just go, well, he doesn't look too happy, I'm sure he's all right, and then go off home, see your family and have a happy life.
Is that genuine care,
he must
right?
be struggling.
Yeah.
So that's
is that genuine care, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, you know, care, you could call it care, you could call it concern, you could call it whatever you want. I think if you can honestly look at somebody and say, God forbid, right, that the worst ever happened, and you were like, Jesus, I was just thinking 2 weeks ago that something weren't quite right with him. I wish I did something. How stupid are you going to sound?
Yeah.
Right? That's how I feel. I'm always quite upfront. I'm always quite, you know, blunt and honest in certain aspects. And I feel like I'm like that with my mates, you know. But to answer your question, you know, supporting and uplifting is definite, you know, and I think that goes, it's the team thing, you know, you should be there for your team. You should be, right, let's not go as far as willing to die for your team, because let's just say it is just work.
It is just work.
But if you think about it in the aspects of success, you're willing to do what you need to success for your team. You need to be able to be positive. You shouldn't be flooding negativity into any situation. You should always care about the person to your left and right, I feel, because that's you're spending a lot of time with, so you're going to get to know.
So I do ask everyone who comes on Modern Man Podcast the exact same last question, and that is, what advice do you have for the modern man?
Don't forget to be yourself. As much as you might not think it, you are good enough.
That's fantastic. Gosh, I think I might just take that for myself.
Didn't think that one was going to come in, did you?
No, I did. I absolutely did not, but I appreciate it so much. That is amazing. No.
Yeah, I think you got to look at it from a selfish point of view, right? It's not necessarily, you think that a lot of people go out there thinking that they need to prove something. Yeah. And they need to be something else. They need to be they need to look like this, they need to do that, they need to act like this, they need to talk like that. No, it don't. You're your own person, you're your own image, you know, you've been brought up a certain way, but you have control of what you want to do. And a lot of people, everybody does it. You know, it's leaving out, you know, it's like leaving the house. Do I look good today? You know, oh, my hair's not looking that great, or I look really tired, or I haven't ironed the outfit, so I've had to deal with this or whatever. And you're always kind of like bringing yourself down and always like finding the bad things about yourself or the negative things. But not a lot of people kind of just like sit up, like stand up straight, walk out the door and go, got this. And, you know, some people find that really hard to do. And, you know, I think if you can actually sit back and go, you know, I am good enough. I know my self-worth and I know what I want and I'm going to go out and get it. If you can have that sort of mental attitude, you've won half the battle already. That comes with being a little bit older in life. If you've got that when you're younger, you know, all to you, you know, kudos to you indeed, because that is something you develop. Like you have to develop that sort of mentality, and that doesn't come naturally, I don't think. Yeah. Unless you're that you know, secure and strong in your own skin and in your own mind.
I say this a lot because there's just so much happening in the world right now. There always has been and there always will be. And there's just so much negativity and there's so many things trying to tear you down. We can't also be doing that to ourselves. You know, we need to build ourselves up, because when we walk through those doors and we come back in, it's a whole different ball game. And I'm so blessed to be in a relationship that I am with my wife, who I truly appreciate. And I really feel like coming back home is our safe space, and it's like a way to rebuild, because once I go out, I'm like at 100%, like a phone battery. You know, I leave the house and, you know, someone honks at me in traffic, that just -2, it just keeps going down. And then at the end of the day, I'm at like, you know, I might be on like 1%, and I walk through the door and I, you know, see her face. And right now we don't have kids yet, but I see my dog and I'm just like, okay, all is right in the world. And the next morning I look at myself in the mirror, I'm great, let's go.
That's it. And, you know, the one thing that it took me a long time to learn, you know, I at one point was a workaholic. You know, I was the type of guy that would take my work phone on holiday. I would be on business calls, or I'd be on update calls in the morning, every morning for an hour, you know, so because that's what I thought I needed to do. Yeah. You know, and for the first time in almost 10 years, I went on holiday in June without a work phone. And it was like someone had torn my leg off, because I was just like, I should be answering emails, I should be doing this, but I'm like, no, I shouldn't, because I'm in between jobs. I'm waiting to, I've finished one and I'm in between another. So, but yeah, I mean, look, when you and the other half are ready and you get that opportunity to have kids, and you know, it's the biggest, you know, you talk about plugging into a wall in your life now to charge yourself up. Kids are basically a portable charger, right? You run around and you're constantly recharging, because you come back and they don't care about what you did at work. They don't give a crap about how much money you made or how much money you lost or how bad of a day you are. They come in, they see you, and it's like a dog, I suppose. It's like, you know, unconditional love and happiness. And then you're just like, like I was trying to say at the beginning, the one thing I learned was leave work at the door. And I've only learned that in the last year or so. So leave work at the door. Well, actually, that's not fair. Actually, I was kind of doing that when my eldest was younger. But yeah, it was very much like I'd come in, he'd be really young, so he'd be asleep, or the missus would be napping or whatever, and then I'd do a few more emails. But really, if I just spent my time organising my day properly, I'd get done what I need to do. And then I can get home, I can watch something on the train on the way home, get home, spend some time with the kids, have a nice dinner, relax, go to bed, start again the next day.
Thank you so much, Christian, for joining us today on the Modern Man podcast. I truly appreciate it. I know our viewers have learned so much, and I hope you've had a good time.
It's been an experience, I have to admit. I've never had the opportunity or been invited to do one of these before. I feel very blessed to have the opportunity to say my piece. I'm sure there'll be people that disagree or agree or have some insight on the way that I think and the way that they think. And look, it's all a learning game in this world. You know, you learn from others that have been there longer than you have, and you can learn from me. If somebody can take something that I've said and apply it to what they need to do or what they want to do, and that helps them, then one, I'd love to meet them, and two, it'd be just great to know that that'd be the case.
I appreciate it so much. I've learned a lot, and I know like everyone who comes on this podcast platform, and even myself, we're sharing our own experiences, and other people might have different experiences, and that's what makes us different as humans at the end of the day. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Christian. And to everyone who's watching and listening, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. Can't wait to see you on the next one. Take care.